continues now.
As the world continues to watch the events unfold in France, many believe we are entering a new phase in the war on terror. More Western jihadists are returning from terrorist training camps, ready to unleash terror on their fellow citizens back home. Thousands of European and possibly some Americans are reportedly fighting with extremist groups overseas. In fact, suspect Saeed Kouachi, killed yesterday by French authorities, says he was trained and financed by Al-Qaeda. And a member of Al-Qaeda in Yemen claims the terrorist group directed the attack on Charlie Hebdo. Now, if that's confirmed, it would be the first time Al-Qaeda's branch in Yemen successfully carries out an operation in the West. Joining us now, terrorism expert Brigitte Gabriel. Welcome. Great to have you here today. Let me ask you, do you agree that we are indeed in the midst of a new chapter in the war on terror when it comes to protecting Western interests?
We are in a new chapter because terror is escalating worldwide. And right now, when you see individuals carrying on their own operations in the West and killing people, which is easily done in any country in the West, walking into a supermarket or walking into a printing shop or stopping by and killing a police officer doing a random stop check on the road, that is escalated from the major planned attack like what we saw with Al-Qaeda back in 2001 to what we're witnessing today. And it's more dangerous, and we're going to see more of it worldwide in Western nations and here in the United States as well.
I want our viewers to hear from the slain terror suspect who spoke with Paris television before he was killed, talking about his alliances. Let's listen.
Nous, on te dit juste qu'on est les défenseurs du prophète sallallahu alayhi wa sallam et que j'ai été envoyé, moi, Shérif Kouachi, par Al-Qaïda du Yémen. Et que je suis parti là-bas et que c'est Cheikh Anwar Al-Awlaki qui m'a financé.
So there he is right there saying that he was financed by Al-Qaeda and that he did receive training and that we are probably going to expect to see more of this happening. Brigitte.
Yes, Al-Qaeda is in competition with ISIS. Al-Qaeda wanted to carve its own name again and show the world that while it's being distracted with ISIS, Al-Qaeda still holds a stature. They were competing for stature, and they were able to pull it off. This is a major win for Al-Qaeda because we pretty much didn't hear much about Al-Qaeda in the last few months. All we heard is about ISIS. So now Al-Qaeda is back on the world stage and showing, listen, we can carry on our own operations. And what we need to pay attention to, Uma, in this case, is that it doesn't matter what name these terrorists go by or who they align themselves with, whether it's Al-Qaeda or ISIS or Boko Haram in Nigeria or Lashkar-e-Taiba in India or Al-Shabaab in Somalia. What they all share is the common ideology and their common hatred for the West and the establishment of Sharia law as the law of the land anywhere they can. And this is why the West has to be able to look at the ideology and talk about the ideology and what's the commonality between these groups instead of just going by, well, this group did this and this group did that.
Well, let me ask you that in the wake of the Paris attacks, the so-called no-go zones in Paris are now under close scrutiny. The French government has essentially ceded control of these Muslim neighborhoods around the city. This is an area that has been seen as a breeding ground for young Muslims who are French citizens but feel alienated by French society and are radicalized in some of the mosques there. Yet it appears the French government has lost control of these areas because Sharia law, as you point out, is allowed to flourish there. Do you think this attack is a wake-up call that will get the French government to get rid of these no-go zones?
This is a wake-up call for the French, but they will not be able to get rid of these zones. There are 751 zones, Uma. 751 zones that range between 2 zones to 12 zones per city, and they are scattered between Paris to Marseille and everything in between and everything around. France lost control of the situation. Right now, France is at stage 4 cancer, and it's going to be very difficult for France to rebound and heal itself. It's far too gone. And this is why this is a warning for us and other nations where we yet do not have 8% Islamic population in our nations, because we are seeing that once the Islamic population gets to a certain point, that's when they start pushing their own point of view, like Sharia laws, for example. France has a problem, Britain has a problem. As you and I are speaking, there are 85 Sharia courts operating in Britain alone. We are starting to see the same thing here in the United States. We have documented over 100 Sharia Sharia courts, Sharia cases in the United States. And this is why we at Act for America are fighting this and building firewalls and introducing legislation in America that we have passed already in 9 states called ALAC, American Laws for American Courts, that will protect our states from the Islamic members immigrating into our country and pushing for Sharia law here. And that's why we want Americans to be engaged, to be active, to be involved. Now is the time to be active and build up the firewalls before we see what happened in Europe.
Not just Americans, but also world leaders. I want our viewers to hear a New Year's message that the president of Egypt issued to an audience of the clerics there, telling them that they are part of the problem, that they need to do more to stop radical Islam. Let's listen in.
It is inconceivable that the ideology we sanctify should make our entire nation a source of concern, danger, killing, and destruction all over the world. Let me say again, we need to revolutionize our religion.
He was speaking to the Muslim clerics in that audience, and that is a story that didn't get a lot of publicity around the world, but it's really a major step to see the Egyptian president there addressing that audience and saying that something has to be done right now to rein this in. Brigitte, what's your reaction to that?
He's amazing. He is the first Islamic president since Ataturk in Turkey in 1924 who basically stood up against his own people and abolished the caliphate. So now we have Sisi saying the same thing. And you know what's ironic, Ummah? This is the guy that President Obama doesn't like. This is the guy that President Obama cut off aid to Egypt just because he was elected and threw off the radicals, the Muslim Brotherhood, the thugs who were turning Egypt into an Islamic theocracy. So this tells you where our president stands. But people like el-Sisi need to be supported. Their message needs to be magnified. Obama should have been on the phone with el-Sisi, thanking him for his stand and pledging support for el-Sisi to help him get his message across. We need world leaders to stand with him and support him. And right now, the West is too coward to stand with freedom fighters like him. And basically, they are just standing on the sidelines.
Well, let's hope more Western leaders are going to come together, particularly in light of what we just are witnessing in Paris as a huge wake-up call for Europe, and we will move forward in a positive way. Let's hope. Brigitte, always great to see you. Thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you for having me on the show.